All right. Hello again, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming today to our third installment of Rev Up Revenue in 2021. A couple of quick notes before we do get things started today. As always, everyone's line is muted. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll get to them at the end of the corresponding section. We do not have a workbook this time around. However, we will be sending out the recording of the presentation to all registered attendees later in the week. We do also have a survey that you can find the link to in the chat box now. We would really love your feedback on. We're going to be raffling off a Starbucks gift card to one lucky winner who does complete the survey, which is just in time for pumpkin spice latte season. If you can't tell from the lack of enthusiasm in my voice, I'm sad that summer is over. But with that being said, my name is Will Bowles. I am coming to you live from Chicago. Here's now. I'm an account lead now. Previously, I was a strategist and associate on our publisher solutions team. So I've really seen it all from our managed and self-serve clients. The theme of today's webinar will be making yourself hard to cancel. As we are very well aware at this point in time, everyone is out there selling digital, and we often get asked how sellers can set themselves apart from their competition. So the contents of today's presentation are going to answer that question. We'll take a deep dive into how you can ask the right questions in your discovery meeting, how you can present your pitch that best suits your advertiser's need with running a digital campaign, and finally, how you can position reporting to not only lead to a successful campaign, but also to secure more renewals. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Alyssa, who's going to be leading us off.
Hey everybody, good to see you today. Happy Tuesday. Unlike Will, I'm super thrilled it's fall. For those of you who are thinking maybe you should do the survey and win a Starbucks gift card, my favorite order these days is a hot pike, just a standard coffee, but with pumpkin cold foam on top. It gets a little taste of the pumpkin spice, but not too crazy. So do it. You'll love it. All that said, my name is Alyssa Hom, publisher team, and I'm super excited to walk you guys through the first chunk of the Make Yourself Hard to Cancel series. And I'm going to be focusing on everything pre-sale in the discovery. So we're going to jump into two different pieces here. We're going to talk first about research and kind of how we can loop that into our reach outs, as well as, I'm sure you guys we're expecting this, but from me, all I'd love to talk about is KPIs. We'll jump into that too. So we'll start with research and shiny objects. So I think shiny objects is such an interesting thing. I would say our team often gets asked about what's new to sell? What can we bring to clients that's new and different? We know the digital space is always changing. Can you tell us what we should be talking to our clients about? And while I think a lot of that stuff is super important, especially as like newer platforms and ad formats are coming out, I think a big one over the last couple of years has been audio, for example, and connected TV. I still think it's important to make sure you are pitching a partnership and you're pitching a holistic media plan as opposed to that shiny object. But that being said, I do think a shiny object, along with some valuable research and insights, can make it so you are really hard to cancel in terms of being that email corresponder with a potential advertiser or even an existing advertiser you're trying to grow. I think valuable research and insights, if done in a really strategic way, can make it so that your advertisers actually like getting little nuggets of information from you and find themselves going to you as their go-to person for knowledge and education on the digital space. So you can see there are kind of two places that I think are the best times to use research. And the first one is very pre-sale. So it's those client reach outs, looping in a digital statistic, and whether it be about anything you're excited about. And you can always seem like we get a lot of information and we have a lot of access to information where we can get you stats that could be helpful for your reach outs. But let's say we're really interested in going after some video dollars and we want people to know that we have a really phenomenal CTV offering. It would be a good idea to start your client reach out with like a stat about why CTV is a good platform, or about why we're seeing this pop up on plans more often. Oh, it's because we're seeing more people spend time there. So this actually is a good place for you to spend money because that's where people's eyeballs are. And good news, we can help you with it. We can help you include that in your plan, or heck, let's just talk and have a conversation and see if that's actually a good fit for your business and what it is you're trying to accomplish. So not only can you loop education into kind of a mini sales pitch or a shiny object pitch, but you can also use it as a way to just, again, stay top of mind for education purposes and kind of be that person that the advertiser thinks, oh, this person really knows their stuff. And I really appreciate them keeping me in the loop on what's new and different with digital, because as we all know, being in this space, it's changing all the time. So if somebody feels like, gosh, I'm confused, good, I have someone I can go to, you already have a leg up and you already are that much more hard to cancel. The other place that I think research can be super valuable is when you are pitching your plan and you're trying to differentiate yourself from other existing plans. And we're going to talk about the pitch a little bit more with Mike Dean next. But a couple things to kind of keep in mind is you can actually use research to help showcase digital trends, to help showcase audience and market profiles, to give insights to digital or to verticals or to research team that we are happy to tap into when you have clients that kind of necessitate that little bit extra lift, or where that extra research would go a long way in getting them to commit to more dollars through you. So typically we do like to see that at around like 10,000 a month. But we're happy to kind of pull research that is going to emphasize why your plan makes sense and why it's going to be beneficial to that advertiser in the long run. And you can see we work with quite a few different partners. It's a very logo focused slide, obviously, but you're going to see things that like Moat and Nielsen, and our team uses eMarketer a lot. So again, even if it's not something as formal as, hey, I need a full-on media insights, competitive analysis for this client, but instead, hey, do you have any updated stats on audio? Or, hey, is there anything cool you think I could pass along about native? We're happy to help pull that kind of stuff because our team, specifically everybody you can see up at the top, spends a lot of time on eMarketer. We get a lot of information there. We get a lot of information from Ad Age. We're constantly kind of just, piling away little nuggets of knowledge, like little squirrels in the fall, that we're happy to kind of bring out when you need. But again, if you have that client where you're like, actually, I would love some help, solidifying why I'm presenting this plan, have access that research and access that knowledge. So reach out if that comes up. A couple of sample research slides, just so you kind of know what to expect if you do reach out. A lot of times we'll get questions like, hey, this is my client, their competitors are these 5 people. Can you tell me what those competitors are spending in digital? Can you tell me, how that looks month over month, where they really spike in their spend and where they don't? It can be a really good way to kind of see, my advertiser, are they on par with what the competitors are doing in the space? Or do I now have the ammunition to kind of say, hey, it looks like your top 3 competitors are spending X amount more than you in digital. That could be why sales are higher, whatever that might be, whatever story you're crafting for that pitch. The other place where we do some pretty great research is just within the vertical or the category. So looking at trends, this one was for like an education trend. So looking and seeing actually search spend grow over the past year because of COVID. They saw a ton of search spend and a lot of search response happening within the educational vertical. So it's, I would say our team really likes to look at this stuff too, because it's super interesting. It helps you tell a story and it helps you justify the media plan at the end of the day. So you can start with vertical research and insights and digital nuggets as a way to kind of set yourself apart, as a way to make it so you're not super annoying if you're doing some cold calling, but you instead become a resource, and that makes you hard to cancel as like a resource or partner. But I think the most important thing you can do from a pre-sale perspective is to really dive into those success conversations. And I joked at the beginning, but it's true. If you've ever heard any of us, but specifically me, give a presentation, I really do focus in on this a lot, because I do think it is the number one thing that can set yourself apart in a market where everybody has digital to sell. And a lot of salespeople will focus on those shiny objects. Hey, I'm going to sell you audio because that's the new thing. Or I'm going to sell you podcasts specifically because inventory is, increasing there and it's a great place to be. Well, it might be. And there are a lot of people listening to that space, but does it make sense for the advertiser and what it is they're trying to accomplish? So I think the biggest thing you can do to make yourself uncancelable is to talk about success and get on the same page about what that means. So we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. So like I kind of mentioned, it's easy to say, oh, that podcast line item, it's not working, I need to cancel that. But it's really tough to say, you know what, I need to cancel our awareness campaign. Yeah, all the video and audio and, all of the pieces that are kind of driving that awareness, because it's just not working. Well, that becomes a much longer conversation than, hey, I'm canceling my 250,000 impression audio buy. So think of it like that. It's hard to cancel success and strategy specifically. So if you go into the sale with the mindset of, I'm going to build you a strategy based on what you view as being successful, as opposed to, I'm going to go into this relationship pitching you a product and hope it works for you in the end, you are going to automatically set yourself apart. And again, make it really hard for that advertiser to say, this isn't working. So we took a look again at some of the resources that we have as a team. And I was digging around eMarketer to kind of see what KPIs or key performance indicators that are most used by brand marketers, and was not really surprised to find that the top 4 are conversion focused. So conversions can kind of fall into a lot of different places. But the number one is people love to know that the investment that they're making is leading to sales and revenues. That's true. And in some instances, we can actually tie that back, and it can be a really interesting story to tell. But there are other ways to track leads that don't necessarily involve revenues, like leads, engagements, just general conversions. And you'll see those as kind of being the top 4. You do see impressions and reach. That's where under kind of our awareness bucket. And you do see traffic, which I think CTR would kind of fall under, and where we do see a lot of energy. I think, with CTR, all of us in the space, including all of you on this call today, have been fighting the fight of, is CTR worth talking about? And I think like in some aspects it might be, but you can see it's not necessarily the leading KPI that people really find as beneficial to their business. So while you can always share that information, I think it's really important to figure out, okay, I know people in the past have shared, CTRs with you, but has that been helpful? Has that proven out your spend? Has it showed that this campaign has made a difference with your business? And it may or may not have. So then you can kind of go on to other metrics that could kind of prove that out. And if they're really interested in traffic, you could always lean to other KPIs that could help prove that out. And so we'll look here on the next slide. it'll be the next one, but about how that kind of is set up. But with campaign goals, the biggest thing I think is that they're agreed upon. So the advertiser and you as the seller agree, yes, for this campaign, we are going to track site traffic. And what we're going to do is track how much it costs per click and ensure that we're starting to see efficiencies. So as opposed to like a CTR percentage, let's look at something a little bit meatier. Let's talk about something as it pertains to what you're actually spending on media. So get to that agreed upon space. I think the other place with conversions is it could be, hey, I know you're really interested in tracking sales, but perhaps they can't track sales on their website. And that becomes really important to dive into that conversation too, because I think we've all been in a meeting where they've said, well, my main goal is to sell X, Y, or Z. And you're like, great, but how do we get there? Especially if we can't track that in an e-commerce way on their site. Are there things on their site that indicate, oh, we saw an increase in form fills or we saw an increase in signups? That typically means we have a really good month. And is that something we could direct media to, optimize the campaign towards? But again, it's getting to that place of we both agree that while we can't track maybe end sales, we can track form fills. Let's make that the big goal of this campaign. So just make sure you're on the same page. I think it's really big to make sure that you determine before any impression is ever delivered. Your internal sellers, buyers, we all want to make sure that we are optimizing the campaign as soon as we start. And the only way to do that is to make sure we have a KPI that we're working towards and that everybody understands as being the metric to look at as we move forward. Something really specific so we know exactly what it is that we're trying to measure, and that is what we are going to talk about in the report, which Jamie will kind of talk about at the end today. But having that specific metric that's going to be our, oh, we saw this increase, this is doing great, or hey, we saw it decrease, what can we change here? That specific KPI or specific metric will be really important to make sure you're aligned on. And then it has to be measurable. So to that point of like can we actually track sales on the site? Maybe, maybe not. Or phone calls is a common one. That one becomes tricky to have it be measurable within the programmatic space. So if we want to build phone calls, what's a measurable way we could do that? Could we drive traffic to the page with the phone number? That then becomes measurable and a way to kind of say, yes, this campaign is succeeding or it isn't. So here are those campaign goals and metrics. And so within here, you're going to kind of see different places and things that you can actually bucket up into the different goals that we use for digital. So the overarching goals being, I just want to drive brand awareness, or just want to drive traffic to my site, or I want people to do something on my site when they get there. There are different ways to kind of measure these. Under awareness, you're going to see quite a few, and that's because some of them fall under display, like impressions and eCPMs, while some are more suited for audio and video, like your completed views or your cost per completed view. Viewability is available and can be used as a way to kind of prove out awareness, and brand lift studies. I don't want that to go unnoticed. I think you're going to want to, again, talk about some of your bigger clients who are spending significant budgets. But if that's something they're interested in figuring out, did my brand go from A to B after I spent on the campaign? That is something we can do and help with. So definitely reach out if that ever comes up as a way to kind of prove out brand awareness. With site traffic, like we were mentioning, CTR used to be like kind of the end all be all metric, but there's so many unique, cool things you can track with site traffic, and especially that become a lot more relevant to the advertiser. A 0.12 is a really tricky stat to kind of say, yes, this worked, but we drove 1,200 clicks or people to your site last month. Well, that's a little bit easier to digest. And then when you add a cost layer on top of that, and each of those 1,200 people, it costs $1.50 to send them there. Oh, well, that now as a business owner, I can calculate that and understand that a lot more than I can a CTR. And the more they understand the report and can kind of follow the story that you're telling, the better off you'll be. Lastly, with user action, obviously you can do the same thing. Look at conversions and look at how much does it cost for those conversions. So getting again on the same page about, well, what's our overarching goal, but more importantly, what specific KPI or metric are we going to look at over time to ensure that we are on the same page when it comes to success on the campaign is going to go really far when setting yourself apart and making it hard to cancel. People just don't cancel campaigns out of the blue that are achieving metrics that were agreed upon at the beginning of the campaign. And then lastly, looking at, flexibility. And we talk about this a lot, but I think even looking forward, this can be a really good way to set yourself apart too. There are still a lot of salespeople out there who go out and pitch CPMs and products and cost per products, as opposed to pitching a strategy and looking at all the different ways we can reach an audience and then utilizing the tech and the real-time data to tell us where to spend our money. I think not enough people talk about that when it comes to, hey, why do we use tech to run digital? Well, because it's efficient and it does a really good job of helping us make decisions, and our buyers can kind of make sure that the tech's doing the job we want it to. But when we give the tech the flexibility, along with the parameters of what that KPI is that we discussed, we see huge performance and we see a lot better results for the client over time because we aren't handcuffed to a specific plan. We're instead handcuffed to the performance of the campaign and to that KPI and just finding where we can get more of it. The real-time perspective of that becomes super important because it just allows for more data to make sense, to drive decisions. And again, it just leads to a greater partnership, right? And so you will become much harder to cancel if you're consistently proving out success. But in order to prove out that success, you have to agree and you have to let your buyers do their thing. So with that, I will pause for any questions on the pre-sale. We covered off on research. We covered off on how to use that with cold calling and kind of reach outs in your media plan, as well as goal setting. So I'll kick it to Will for any questions.
Yeah, there's one question here, Alyssa. It reads, can I select more than one KPI?
We get that question a lot. And I think that's because advertisers ask for that a lot. They're always like, well, I want people to go to my site, but I also want them to buy something. And it's like, okay, well, which one do you want more? And I think that's really important, is to figure out, of course, do we want efficient CPMs and do we want high clicks and do we want low CPAs? Yes, all of that's true. But at the end of the day, what's going to make the most impact on your business? So I would say no, you can't select two KPIs in one media plan. But if you have a client who's like, I really want to drive awareness, but I also want to do a conversion campaign, that's okay to say, cool, let me plan you two campaigns with two separate budgets and see, and I'll present kind of two different strategies, as it were, but I don't want to do this all in one campaign because it's not going to work. I always use this example, and maybe it's getting tired, but when you have your New Year's resolution and you decide to do three things, like, I am going to do meal planning, every week, make sure I always have lunch. I am going to walk the dog every day, and I'm going to run 5 miles a week. If you have all these goals, it's really tough to achieve all three goals the full year. But instead, if you focused on just one of those goals, I'm going to walk the dog every day, that becomes a lot more bite-sized, a lot more manageable, and you're much more likely to achieve it. So feel free to use examples like that when you're talking to clients who can't really understand why we can't measure two things. And Jamie will kind of note this too in her section. It's okay to show stats of that, of other wants or wishes, but the real focus and the real story has to stick with what the most important KPI is at the end of the day.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, I will kick it over to, or was there any more questions, Will? Or...
Nope, that was all.
Okay, cool. I will kick it over to Mike Dean to take us through the pitch.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. As she just mentioned, my name is Mike Dean. I'm coming to 7 years. And after the discovery, we move on to the pitch. So when you get to the pitch, it's a great excuse to show off how much work you've actually done in the discovery process. Take those campaign goals and KPIs and translate them into tactics and channels that you can include in your pitch to show how you'll deliver audiences and success. So what did I mean when I said multiple channels and tactics? Taking a multi-channel approach means pitching a media plan that gives the advertiser multiple channels and tactics to reach that audience. Think about it. You've got competitors that are selling through single channels and even tactics. We say this all the time, but make yourself that one-stop shop where your advertiser can get their programmatic, their search, and social all in one place. From there, show them how the channels tie back into those audiences that will bring them the best results on their plan. Single channel is easy to cancel, multi-channel, not so much. If performance from one channel isn't there, you can always shift the budget to another channel. So using multiple channels and tactics can bring you different audiences. Why is it hard to cancel an audience? Well, because audiences are your advertiser's customer. And they're probably talking to you right now because they're looking for more business. Diversify between those audiences to show that flexibility. Advertisers often think they can find their audience by just using third-party data. That's only one of the ways to find an audience. Show them you can find audiences through location, context, or what people are watching or listening to. Does your advertiser want to cancel their customer? Probably not. So here's just a little bit of research and data to show why multi-channel can be effective. Use these to help justify multi-channel to advertisers that might need to see some data to support your overall pitch. I'm just specifically going to call out this middle one. I think it's the most powerful. Businesses that use multi-channel marketing experience a 3 times higher effectiveness rate than those that don't use it. So like I said, sometimes it just helps bring just some additional pieces of data along when you're doing that pitch. So this is how we want you to really think of yourself, representing a media company, not just another newspaper, TV, or radio rep. You have access to all these digital channels in-house. You are that one-stop shop. Multi-channel doesn't need to include all of these channels, but at the same time, why isn't your advertiser buying all their media through you? Get yourself a bigger piece of the pie. Are they just using you for a programmatic? If all channels are under one roof, it makes optimizations so much easier than not knowing if another channel is underperforming because it's run by one of your competitors. So within each of these channels, we have different ways of finding multiple audiences or customers. Remember, think outside the box. Let's say you have a higher education client and they're trying to drive college admissions. You might want to target the college and high school student through TikTok, Snapchat. You might want to combine that with a larger reach approach using Facebook or Instagram. You might want to target parents using Twitter, Reddit, Pinterest. There's so many different ways to find audiences through each of these individual channels. So with finding audience through programmatic, it really just kind of goes the same as that same example that I just had with social. I specifically like this programmatic example because it shows you how many types of audiences through multiple tactics you can go after if you're looking for education seekers. Multiple tactics, multiple audiences, they're all working together right here. I keep using this example, but your advertiser probably thinks the audience tactic is the only way to find their audience. But with contextual, what are they reading online? With audience, who are they? Hyperlocal, where are they? Video and audio, like what are they watching? What are they listening to? And retargeting, let's just keep serving them impressions until they've worked their way down the sales funnel or the purchase funnel. Remember, just one tactic, one channel, it's very easy to cancel. Diversify, let's optimize to the channels, tactics, and audiences that are working the best. Okay, well, this brings me to one of my favorite and most important strategies of the pitch is the upsell. I get it, it's not easy asking for more money from your advertiser after they already probably told you their budget during discovery, but let me show you some of the benefits here. It never hurts to give options. Even if you can't get them to agree on the upsell, you've still put the options in front of them and you can reference them at a later date, maybe like during reporting or a renewal meeting. Plus, if you give them options, this makes them feel like they have a say in the overall strategy. When your advertiser feels included in the process, it makes it so much harder to cancel. So every seller is going to bring back the plan the advertiser asked for. Set yourself apart by bringing back 2 to 3 plans. I like to tier them out into good, better, and best plans. The plan they asked for is the good plan, but don't forget your media planner is still the expert. And these are the plans that they put together to bring the most success. You can add channels in the tier. You can add channels as tiers to go up to show there's better ways to drive performance. Like with this example, like good could just be the programmatic piece, better programmatic plus search, best has programmatic search and social. Like kind of reminds me of this time I was out to dinner and I told the waiter I was kind of stuck between ordering the steak and ordering the duck. The waiter tells me, he goes, well, the duck was pretty good, but my favorite overall thing on the menu is our chicken parm. And that goes really well with our cacio e pepe pasta. And if you're ordering that, I've got a great Chianti Classico that goes well with it. And instantly I was sold. I spent probably a little bit more money than I was planning on spending, but all in all, it was a great experience. And, that's kind of like our job, being the media consultant and just a better overall strategic partner to our customer. Also, shout out to that waiter at Marcel's in Atlanta. So let's talk about the benefits to being that one-stop shop that I was mentioning earlier. So first, make a bigger impact. Channels work together to build on another's success. 2 of 3 shoppers use more than one channel to make purchases. Why does retargeting work so well? The more options you put your brand in front of a customer increases the chances of purchase. This works the same way with channels. Let's follow people's eyeballs wherever they are. It's also easy and efficient. Shifting budget and making changes to the campaign is done seamlessly. Make media planning 29% faster and 26% less time is spent on optimizations. You keep everything under one roof. It makes everything easier to optimize than having 3 separate companies running programmatic, search, and social. And then finally, just the overall vision and historicals. Opportunities for new offerings, as well as for historical information on performance, can all be in one place when you're that one partner. 40% of US markets value strong strategic thinking the most from their marketing partner. When you have one partner covering all channels that keeps all the reporting and all the optimization data in one place, that makes you just overall a better strategic partner. One partner running all of your media makes it so much harder to cancel that one partner. So finally, let's recap really quick. First, do your homework before you go into that pitch, and that, take what you learned in discovery, show them all the tactics and channels that will drive them the best possible KPI performance. 2, multi-channel does set you apart from your competitors. Wouldn't your advertiser rather meet with just one rep to go over reporting each month instead of separate reps for each channel? 3, your audiences or your advertisers' audiences are their customers. The more the audiences, the better. You have to diversify beyond just running one audience tactic. Multiple tactics, multiple audiences, multiple channels. That gives you more data. That gives you more of an opportunity to optimize to the best possible performing tactics and channels and audiences. 4, show flexibility. You want to educate them on how you can optimize between the tactics and channels when you have them all in-house. And then finally, you're going to want to upsell and then give them options. Always give options. If they ask for a media plan, give them the good, better, and best options. So questions, that was kind of short and sweet, but any questions out there?
Yeah, Dean, there was one question, and it does not pertain to your order, but it does have to do with upselling. The question reads, how can I tier out budget amounts when attempting to upsell an advertiser without giving them sticker shock?
That's a good question. And anybody email me, there was more items within that order. I'd be happy to share with anybody. But yeah, I mean, as far as like, it's a really a good question because like, you definitely don't want to scare somebody away. So I usually bring it back to overall discovery. Like when you're trying to figure out campaign goals, you're trying to figure out KPIs, you want to ask them like what type of investment they're looking to make or what type of budget they're willing to make as well. If you're just talking to them about programmatic and they give you a budget for that, that means that they're likely running some of these other channels through through competitors. So, use that first budget they give you as a baseline and then just add to that. Like it could be, like a $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 option. But at the same time, like to avoid that sticker shock, you can just let them know with the good, better, and best. You don't even need to provide the pricing right there at that moment, because you can always scale back the amount of impressions that you're including, the size of the geo. There's a lot of levers that we have, but start with the overall budget that you have from discovery and then just go from a lot of it. It's not really a science. There's really more of an art to it, but just use that, the discovery as a jumping off point there.
Cool. And that was our only question here. So I will now kick it over to Jamie Heffelfinger, who's going to be going over the report.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. Thanks, everybody. I am super excited to come to you from New Orleans. I get the exciting pleasure to talk about reporting because nothing gets sellers more excited than data and reporting. So let's dive in. It's going to be a good one. I'm going to kick us off first with a little bit of a fun exercise. So let's think to ourselves, you have a new hotel coming into the marketplace. They have just lost their marketing person and they're coming to you. They want to be be their one-stop shop. And they're like, hey, I have some questions about creative for you. I'm about to spend an obscene amount of money. Can you help me pick out which creative we're going to use? So they show you option 1 that they had been working on here. You can see the 4 seasons. We've got some people enjoying a lovely glass of wine, in that couch that looks more expensive than my whole house, and talking about modern luxury in Philly. And then we have option 2 that they put together. I believe their finance team put this one together. It's just real straightforward, 4 seasons, luxury hotel in Philadelphia, 3rd night free, click here. I think all of us will do a silent poll. You guys don't have to put in your answer, but I believe that all of us would probably pick option 1 here as the better creative to go through to really market their new luxury hotel. If you didn't pick option 1, I would invite you to go check out our creative best practices webinar on the resource library to get to know that a little bit better. But I think that it's really obvious for everybody here that option 1 is the better way to market yourself. Now let's go on to the next exercise here, where it's now time to wrap up your report for them. You are trying to show them what you've done, and you can either send them option 1 that looks like this, or option 1 that looks like this, where we are showing them, you know, some of the stats and highlights here, where we had a decline in CPA, how many conversions we had, throw a little chart in there, or option 2, which is an Excel spreadsheet. And again, silent options here. I think we've all been, I guess, guilty of sending, myself included, this black and white option here. But I think it's really interesting for us to all internalize, you know, we would never let a advertiser market themselves with a black and white text only creative size. But when it comes to marketing ourselves and what we did for the client and the success that we drove, we are fine with showing them a black and white Excel spreadsheet. And so I think for anything that we get today that we're going to talk about in this reporting and campaign management section, I want you guys to start internalizing, thinking about campaign management as you selling yourself and your team and what you're doing for the client and proving your success and getting them to have a really strong relationship with you and a stronger partnership. So let's dive into that idea. So true partnerships are rarely canceled. And we're going to talk about this a lot, but I think that you guys can all attest as well, outside of media, let's think about other services in your life that you've had, whether it's that contractor or that, you know, if you've done a wedding, your wedding planner, somebody that you had that you were like, they are so invested in this project with me. I am going to use them for everything. They are my go-to. And that's what you're really looking for here in digital, is being that partnership and being really hard to cancel because you are so invested in their business. And the only way to truly prove that out is using campaign management and reports as a result. So when we're thinking about partnerships, there was a study done, I believe this was, let's see, we'll go to the next one here. There we go. Thank you. eMarketer. It was eMarketer talked about the benefits to working with a partner and why somebody uses a true media partner. And here's some of the benefits that they get. So additional dedicated resources, reduced costs, more hours of business support, and a specialized skill set. So that's really where people are using and trying to find that partnership or that agency style approach of working with their media. And I think everybody on this call fits all of these needs here. You can bring these additional dedicated resources, whether it's your buying team, that research team that Alyssa talked about, our resources that we have on the resource library. You're giving them so much education, knowledge, background, and informing their decisions that it helps them become that true expert in how they're spending their money. They're reducing their costs because they don't have to use 10 different vendors to get something done. They have all these hours of business support behind them. I'm sure all of us on the call have gotten those outside business hours texts from clients asking and questions, and that's the kind of thing that they're looking for. And you have that specialized skill set. You are the experts in media. Alyssa went through that, Dean went through that, that's where you are shining through. And that doesn't just have to be one channel or one aspect of media, but it's everything. And that's how you can really show them, hey, this is how we're going to take your business from 0 to 100. So when it comes to proving that out, proving that partnership out, and proving that relationship out, data and insights can really help. And we really want you to be their guide through the campaign reporting and analysis. I know we just got over the Olympics, and I want you guys to think about back when you were watching the Olympics, if you were like me, and I know Alyssa as well, you know, obsessed with all things Olympics and gymnastics. You know, Nastia Lukin was there to really help me. I had no clue what it took to balance on a beam or swing from bar to bar. And here she was, not only showing us, oh, it was a bobble, or, oh, she let her hand slip there, but also explaining how long it takes for somebody to get to that skill set, to get to that perfection, how hard it is to point your toes while you're doing that in the middle of the air. And so you are now Nastia Lukin for your clients. You need to be their guide to show them, hey, this is super exciting, these reports, and here's why. And also here's everything that went into it. It's not just something that comes naturally. So let's go through some tips and tricks here for being this guide. First, recommend a reporting and insights cadence. I think, again, I'm making a lot of generalizations, but a lot of the times people tend to be a little bit nervous to talk about reporting or show reporting. They're really, you don't want to rock the boat. If your client's happy, let's just leave them happy and let's just set it and forget it type of thing. And I've seen that happen a lot with reps. But when you're trying to make yourself hard to cancel, you know, if you just set a campaign live and then don't talk to them for 3 months, that's really easy to cancel. If you are there showing them reporting, giving them the insights on what's going on with their campaign, they know that you're working hard for them. That's really hard to cancel because you are showing them how invested you are with them. And so giving them this idea of, hey, I'm going to show you reports every few weeks, and then maybe every 6 or 8 weeks, I'm also going to have our buyers do a deep dive into the optimizations that were made, so they can see that it's not just the tech running it, but it's also a whole team of experts that are really trying to get them the best performance. That's going to set you apart big time from your competitors that are just sending across that Excel spreadsheet. Next, focus on that agreed upon goal. Have you gathered that this is an important part yet of the campaign? I believe Ham talked about it, Dean talked about it, and I'm going to really hammer it home. You cannot show them what success is supposed to look like and tell them that this was a successful campaign if you don't know what they are measuring. You know, let's go back to those Olympics. You don't know what's going to get you that 10 out of 10. So you need to establish that first. You need to figure out what is going to get them really excited. You know, Ryan Adams, who used to work here, he always used to say, what's going to make you high five me at the end of this campaign? And I love that, because then you know all their cards are on the table. You don't need to be scared to show them results, because you know how you're measuring results, you know how you're optimizing towards those results, and you're reporting back on that exact figure. Next, tell a story with the data and the optimizations. I am not a numbers person. I bet a lot of us are not numbers people. We are all marketers, and in advertising, we did not go into finance and Excel spreadsheets. So an Excel spreadsheet and data does not get me excited. You need to explain to me. I love to use terminology like Alyssa and Mike were saying, people, how many people filled out the form, not conversions. How many eyeballs saw your ad, not impressions? How many people did we drive to the website, not a CTR? Like those, yes, I understand why we have to use metrics and media metrics, but always translate them back into their business objectives and make it hard for them to cancel. 135 people on your site is a lot less hard to cancel than a 0.16 CTR. You know, it's just, it just makes it feel real. It starts to connect the dots for them. And I would say a majority of our advertisers would rather speak in terms of their business objectives than their media metrics. And I want you to do the same with the optimizations. Again, it can feel very separated for a client when they just send you a media plan, they sign that IO, and then you're off and you're sending them an Excel spreadsheet. They miss the part that there are 3 people doing the buying. Somebody's on Facebook, somebody's on Google, somebody's on the DSP. They're pulling levers, they're shifting budgets, they're changing things up all the time. I think that goes unsaid a lot of the time, and that's really where you guys shine and where you can help get a leg up against your competitors who are just sending over an Excel spreadsheet and calling it a day. And then lastly, get the advertiser's perspective. I know this is scary. I know this is kind of the worst thing, especially if you have a grumpy goose on the other end and you don't want to hear what they have to say because they're always going to be negative, but it really is going to make a difference. I can't tell you how many times I have sent over a report or I've gotten on a call and I'm super excited and jazzed up about the results that we were able to deliver, and somebody goes, yeah, but my phone rings, so I'm going to cancel this, or I'm not going to renew. And it's like, wait, what? We didn't talk about your phone ringing once. We have been talking about eCPCs this whole time. Like, why didn't I know about this whole phone ringing thing? And so when you can talk to them and have these frequent conversations and get their perspective, you can start to uncover any of those problem areas or hurdles that might show up when it comes time for that renewal conversation way before that happens. And then that's when you can say, okay, whoa, let's get on the same page here. I feel like there was maybe a disconnect. I was talking about eCPC, you're talking about phones ringing. Let's maybe rework what we're going to do here. And then you don't have to wait 3 months of somebody getting grumpier and grumpier because their phone's not ringing. You can tackle that in meeting 1. And now it's time for renewals. I know there's not a lot of text on this slide because there's not a lot of magic in this. If you guys have done everything that we've talked about, so for Melissa's slides, you've done your research, you've figured out what's going to work for their advertisers, you've agreed upon that goal, you've really dug into their needs analysis, and then from Dean's perspective, you've put together a plan, a good, better, best plan for them that's like, hey, this is how we're going to reach your unique audience and your goal. Here's how we could also do it if you're willing to spend more. And then from your reporting, you've shown them over time what your team has done to drive that success on the goal that they talked about, to the audience that they talked about. It's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, but that's you've laid this groundwork that says, hey, you told me you wanted to do this. We did it above and beyond. Are you ready to invest some more? That's really how you grow that partnership. You sell yourself, you sell your team, and you stand up against your competition who, quite frankly, probably didn't do too much research or dig into what they were doing, didn't create a plan that was customized to them, just sent over an Excel spreadsheet and didn't explain the results or what they were doing to achieve them. And now they're like, hey, do you want to sign again? And it's like, maybe, sure, I don't know. At this point, you should never be in that I don't know. You should be like, yes, I am so excited. Let's get more of those form fills. I am into it. And so that's really the secret sauce of that. Renewal is everything, all the work you've put in from day one. You know, I've heard this so many times, but renewals really start with that first meeting. And that is very true across media and what you guys are doing in the digital space. All right, well, any questions?
Yes, there was one question that came in. It reads, what if you can't get your advertiser on a call or in person to actually present them their campaign reporting?
Yeah, I think that honestly, that's probably the hardest part, is getting someone excited about this. You know, my big things are treat every email situation you are in person. So don't just send over a report. I like to bullet some things out in the report, in the email that explains some of the data behind it. Throw a chart in there, throw a pie graph. Everybody loves that. You know, do as much as you can to make it visual. And then also leave messages if you can and kind of tease anything that you're seeing. You know, if you left a phone message that said, hey, you know, we saw a 25% decline in your cost per acquisition, you know, we're spending less to get more type of thing, that's gonna be like, I am kind of interested, as opposed to just being like, hey, can I go over this report with you? That's kind of like, no thanks, I'm busy, you're busy, I don't need that. But showing them that success, teasing them with that success, talking about what you're doing, and maybe say, hey, and I've got some ideas to make this even better. If you've been talking with your buyers, that's going to help, again, stand out and make it worth their time. You know, just think about your own self. When would you get on the phone with somebody? Is it worth your time or not?
Awesome. Well, that was the only question. So thank you everyone so much for joining. Give you guys a couple minutes back in your day today. Just a reminder, if you haven't already filled out the survey that's in the chat box, we would greatly appreciate that. We really value your feedback and would be a great chance to win Starbucks gift card and try out Alyssa's hot pike with cold pumpkin foam next time you're at Starbucks. And again, we will also be sending out the recording of this presentation sometime later in the week as well. So keep an eye out for that. Well, thank you everyone and have a great rest of your day today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.